Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Glad to be here.
Today we're tackling something that I think a lot of us can relate to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's that feeling of just being average.
Hmm.
Like all those big dreams we had as kids.
Right.
Maybe they haven't exactly panned out the way we thought.
Happens to the best of us.
We stumbled across this really thought-provoking Reddit post.
Oh, where was it?
It was on Archdisciplined, and the title really grabbed our attention.
Okay, where was it?
As I get older, I'm realizing that I'm ordinary.
Wow. Yeah, I can see why that would resonate.
And the responses,
What were they like?
so insightful. People share their own experiences and perspectives on feeling average, and it was amazing to see the different ways people cope with it.
So it's not just about feeling average, but about how we react to that feeling.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Sounds fascinating.
We're going to unpack this Reddit post, explore the different responses, and maybe even find some comfort in knowing that we're not alone in feeling this way.
I'm all for that.
So let's jump right in. The original poster starts by describing their journey, from childhood to adulthood, and it's honestly super relatable.
In what way?
Well, they talk about how as a kid they were fascinated by physics.
Really?
Yeah, like reading advanced physics books at just 11 years old.
Wow, that's impressive.
I know, right?
Mm.
But then they talk about how the structure of formal education kind of chipped away at that natural curiosity.
I can see that happening.
Yeah, like instead of learning for the sheer joy of it, it became all about grades and tests and meeting those external expectations.
It's like the system can sometimes stifle our intrinsic motivation.
Exactly. And the OP really felt that shift. And when they entered the workforce, they started comparing themselves to colleagues who seemed to have it all together.
That comparison game can be brutal.
It really can.
Right.
And it just amplified those feelings of inadequacy.
Like they were falling behind in some imaginary race.
Right. And what's interesting is they even mentioned feeling bad about trying to improve themselves as an adult.
Oh, that's interesting. What?
It's like they felt like they should be past that phase already. Like real adults shouldn't have to study or put in the effort to grow.
It's those societal expectations creeping in.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's this unspoken pressure to have it all figured out by a certain age.
And if you don't, you're somehow failing.
Exactly. And the OP really struggled with that.
Makes sense. So we've got this feeling of averageness fueled by societal expectations and maybe even a little bit of self-sabotage.
You hit the nail on the head.
But what about the Reddit responses?
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, because in the next part, we're going to explore the diverse perspectives that came out in the comments.
Okay, wait.
We'll see how people are reframing success, finding fulfillment, and ultimately challenging that idea that average is a bad thing.
This is going to be good. Welcome back, everyone, to our deep dive into feeling average.
We're ready to get into those Reddit responses.
Right. So in the last part, we kind of left off with the original poster feeling stuck, feeling average and like they weren't where they should be in life.
Yeah. And comparing themselves to others, which just made things worse.
Exactly. And we talked about how societal expectations can really fuel those negative feelings.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like there's this pressure to be extraordinary all the time.
Mm-hmm. But the responses to the OP's post offer a totally different perspective.
Yeah, like a breath of fresh air.
I love that. So many people chimed in with their own experiences and advice, and it's really heartwarming to see.
Okay, so where do we even begin with all these responses?
Well, one of the biggest themes that jumped out at me was this idea of shifting values as we age.
Like what we prioritize in our 20s might not be the same as what we value in our 40s or 50s.
Exactly. Our experiences shape us, and our priorities naturally evolve over time.
And hopefully we gain a little wisdom along the way.
Absolutely.
Um.
And the shift in values often leads to a redefinition of success.
Okay, so it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder or making a ton of money anymore.
Right. It becomes more about personal growth,
Hmm.
meaningful relationships, and contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Like finding a sense of purpose.
Exactly. And that can look different for everyone.
This reminds me of a comment from one user, OddDragonFruit7993.
What did they say?
They talked about how they completely changed careers at 30, embraced continuous learning, and actually ended up retiring early.
Wow, that's amazing.
And they said, so now I'm only a little above average, and that's cool.
I love that. It's like they found their own definition of success on their own terms.
Totally. And it wasn't about external validation or meeting some arbitrary standard.
It was about aligning their actions with their values.
Which brings us to another big theme that emerged in the responses, reframing success.
Right. It's about letting go of those external benchmarks and defining success for ourselves.
And that can be really hard in a world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about what success is supposed to look like.
It's like we're always comparing ourselves to others and feeling like we're not measuring up.
Exactly. But what if we could just ditch that comparison game altogether?
What if we could?
I mean, think about how freeing that would be.
Oh, absolutely. It would open up so much space for us to focus on what truly matters to us.
And to celebrate our own unique journeys.
I love that. Another comment that really stood out to me was from Fit for Freelance.
Oh, yeah. What did they say?
They were pretty blunt about it. They basically said, stop using a lame-ass, self-discouraging benchmarking system that you made up for no reason.
Okay, so tough love, but I get it.
Right. Sometimes we need that. It's like we create these arbitrary rules for ourselves and then we beat ourselves up when we don't meet them.
And those rules might not even align with what we actually want out of life.
So true. It's about letting go of those self-imposed limitations and giving ourselves permission to define success on our own terms.
Okay, so we've talked about shifting values and reframing success, but what about actually taking action?
That's where continuous learning and personal growth come in.
Oh, yeah. That was another big theme in the responses.
So many people talked about the importance of embracing a growth mindset.
That belief that we can always learn and grow and improve.
Exactly. It's about seeing challenges as opportunities and failures as learning experiences.
And it doesn't have to be about pursuing formal education or anything like that.
It can be as simple as reading books, listening to podcasts, or even just having deep conversations with people who inspire us.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about making continuous learning a part of our lives.
And finding joy in the process.
One commenter, Unlucky Character 9906, said, you need to find the work opportunity to develop your skills and confidence that will lead you to having that expert feeling. Different job or field? They are out there. You certainly have not aged out of success. Game is far from over.
It's never too late to pursue our passions and find work that lights us up.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that success isn't a destination. It's a journey.
A journey of continuous growth and evolution.
Speaking of evolution, one of the most surprising things that came out of these responses was the idea that there's actually nothing wrong with being average.
Really?
Yeah, some people even saw it as a positive thing.
That's so counterintuitive to everything we're told about striving for success and standing out.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting perspective.
It's like challenging that societal pressure to be exceptional all the time.
And embracing the beauty of the ordinary.
One commenter, Squidward Tennis Balls, wrote, I'd say that to be average is good. You fit right in, and most people don't give a shit about what you're doing. I'd much rather have that than the extreme alternatives, nonstop media attention on everything you're doing, or homelessness. Maybe you just need to take better advantage of your time outside of work.
It's like they're highlighting the freedom that comes with not having to be in the spotlight all the time.
And the peace of mind that comes with blending in.
Another commenter, Rubik Tetris, said, quite the opposite here, actually. I realize that I'm someone that is curious, not afraid to try a lot of different things, not afraid of failing, and can get really motivated and into stuff. This attitude made me grow and experience a lot of things. And I see some people that are still the exact same as I knew them 10 years ago, and that feels weird to me. Life moves on, and if you don't move with it, you get left behind.
It's about embracing our curiosity and willingness to try new things.
And recognizing that life is a journey of continuous learning.
Even our average experiences can contribute to that journey.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this part.
We have. And in the final part, we're going to dive even deeper into practical strategies for reframing our thoughts, cultivating gratitude, and finding fulfillment in unexpected places. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into feeling average.
And I feel like we've really unpacked a lot already.
Yeah, we've explored the psychology behind those feelings of inadequacy and how societal expectations can really mess with our sense of self-worth.
And of course, we dove into those amazing Reddit responses.
Right. We saw how people are challenging those expectations, reframing success, and finding fulfillment in all sorts of unexpected places.
So in this final part, we want to get practical.
Exactly. Let's give our listeners some tangible tools they can use to navigate those feelings of averageness.
Because it's one thing to understand the psychology behind it, but it's another thing to actually apply that knowledge to our own lives.
Absolutely. So let's start with something we've touched on before, reframing our thoughts.
I'm all ears, because I know those negative thoughts can be so sneaky.
Oh, they are. They creep in, and before you know it, you're spiraling down a rabbit hole of self-doubt.
And they often feel so real and convincing.
Right. But here's the thing. Those thoughts are often based on distorted perceptions or unrealistic expectations.
So it's like our brains are playing tricks on us.
In a way, yeah. And that's why it's so important to learn how to challenge those thoughts and reframe them in a more positive light.
Okay, so how do we actually do that?
One technique we talked about before is to treat those thoughts like hypotheses rather than facts.
So instead of just accepting the thought, I'm a failure,
Right. We ask ourselves, what evidence do I have to support this belief? And then we look for counter evidence.
those moments where we've succeeded or demonstrated our competence.
Exactly. It's about putting those negative thoughts on trial and seeing if they can actually hold up under scrutiny.
I love that analogy. What other reframing techniques can we use?
Another powerful one is to focus on our strengths rather than our weaknesses.
It's so easy to get caught up in what we're not good at or what we think we're lacking.
Right. But everyone has unique talents and abilities. And when we shift our focus to those strengths, it can really boost our confidence and motivation.
It's like giving ourselves permission to shine.
Exactly. And speaking of shifting our focus, let's talk about gratitude.
I feel like gratitude is such a buzzword these days.
It is. But there's a reason for that. It's a powerful practice that can really shift our perspective.
So how can we incorporate gratitude into our lives in a way that feels authentic?
Well, one way is to keep a gratitude journal.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
It's as simple as writing down a few things you're grateful for each day.
And it doesn't have to be anything major.
Right. It could be something as small as a warm cup of coffee or a sunny day.
It's about noticing those little things that bring us joy.
Exactly. And another way to practice gratitude is to express it to others.
Like saying thank you to someone who's helped us.
Or writing a letter to a loved one, telling them how much we appreciate them.
It's about spreading that positivity around.
And reminding ourselves of all the good in our lives.
Okay, so we've talked about reframing our thoughts and cultivating gratitude. What's next?
Well, let's talk about finding fulfillment in unexpected places.
I love that idea because we often associate fulfillment with achieving some big goal or reaching some external marker of success.
Right. But what if true fulfillment is actually hidden in plain sight in those everyday moments that we often overlook?
Give me an example.
It could be the joy of spending time with loved ones, the satisfaction of learning something new, the peace of being in nature, or even just the simple pleasure of a good meal.
It's about being present and savoring those moments.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that fulfillment doesn't have to be this grand thing that's out of reach.
It can be found in the little things that make up our everyday lives.
So true. One commenter, Philethet's Good Biblio, put it beautifully.
What did they say?
They said, "It's all good. We can't all be one of the greats."
I love that. It's about accepting ourselves and our journeys.
And finding peace in the ordinary.
So if we could sum up all of this wisdom for our listeners, what would be the key takeaways?
First, remember that feeling average is normal. You're not alone.
Second, challenge those negative thoughts and reframe them in a more positive light.
Third, focus on your strengths and celebrate what makes you unique.
Fourth, cultivate gratitude and appreciate all the good in your life.
And finally, seek fulfillment in unexpected places.
It's about embracing the journey and finding joy in the everyday.
And as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Hit me with it.
If you could shed the pressure to be extraordinary, what would you pursue with passion and genuine curiosity?
What would make your average life feel truly exceptional? That's such a great question to ponder.
I hope it sparks some inspiration for our listeners.
Me too. That's a wrap on our deep dive into feeling average.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
We'll see you next time for another thought-provoking conversation.